It's 2023. We got at the moment patch 6.2 out, and we need to talk about the best L-class ships finally in X4 Foundations at the moment with all the DLCs. Good morning, Spaceman. My name's Captain Collins, and today we're jumping into all the details, into the entire stats of all the L-class ships, and we're going to start with the most important one, with the L-class miners. Now, of course, the L-class miners are an important class because these are the miners that you can just send out and they are doing their job, and even while being harassed by the COG or by Xenon, most of them at least, they are doing their job and you don't need to replenish them because they usually have enough shield, enough hull, enough firepower to just simply survive those attacks. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all the stats, and I'm going to tell you which one are the best, which ones are the worst, and what is in between, and some notable mentions. So you will see on my charts that I will have red, yellow, and green underlining. Red means it's the best, yellow means it's the worst, and green means it's a noticeable mention. And here we're starting to point out the most tankiest miner, which is the Crane Mineral. By the way, I'm only using Sentinel versions for miners and for freighters. Vanguard versions do have a little bit less storage and a little bit less hull. So if we take a look around the miners, the Crane Mineral Sentinel does have not only the most shield, the most hull, but it also has the highest storage for a miner. 57.6k storage, that's a lot, and all the other miners are not even coming close. The next one that is coming a little bit closer is the Magnetar Sentinel with 50.4k. Just a quick mention, the Rorqual, the Boron miner, comes with 40k. That's still somewhere mediocre. And the least storage amount you can get is the Split Wyvern Mineral Miner with just 20k storage. A noticeable mention here for the Rorqual is that it has got almost the same shield power as the Crane. It's lacking a little bit in hull, but it's also one of the most agile ones, and it also is the fastest with a travel speed of 8,200 meters per second, which is more than double of a Crane mineral miner. Another thing that I want to point out is mineral miners usually do only use, well, mining lasers and also mining turrets, and that is a little bit bad for their defense capabilities. And in that regard, in defense capabilities, the Rorqual is here the best, because the Rorqual does not only have mining turrets, but it also has got some usual turrets which you can outfit with guns. And so you have a kind of okay defense. I mean, with the shield, the Crane on the other hand is like one of the worst defended mineral miners here. What about the other miners? Really quick, a word about the Hokkaido, for example, which is like not only the slowest, but also has really low hit points and really low shields. I don't like that. Although if you only operate in Terran space, it's kind of okay. Atonius E or Atonius Sentinel are not really preferable. They are kind of fast, okay. They're lacking in storage capacity, so I would only go with them if you do a Paranid run. The Wyvern, I already talked about it, is the fastest, but also has got the lowest storage. The Donia is like kind of okay. It's noticeably fast. It has got some okay shields for the turrets, but it's also missing hull and usual shield points. It has got a mediocre to low storage capacity. So overall, if you count all the possibilities in here, I would say the Crane Mineral Miner is really my favorite in this entire list, because it's very tanky, although it cannot really defend itself, but this is not an issue when you're so tanky. You can call in reinforcements if you need them, at least for cog ships that are only appearing when you're mining. And Xenon shouldn't be a problem in most of the regions where we're mining with this thing. If you have problems with Xenon, you will need to have destroyers anyway with you, so that doesn't really matter. And with the highest storage capacity, it doesn't really matter that it's a little bit slower or that it's almost the slowest, just 100 meters per second faster, or 140 meters per second faster than the slowest one, the Hokkaido. But these miners are really made for taking a big chunk of stuff with them and then bringing this to a station. So you will only see them once in a while at your station, but if you see them, you want them to have a lot of stuff in their storage. Moving on to the L-class freighters, and we have a gigantic list of L-class freighters, and we have so many different possibilities here that it's just crazy. I mean, like all the original options with Selene, Shuyaku, Sonra, Veles, Makosi, Inker, Katra, Heron, Helios, and so on. Like this is just so much. And then you have these as Sentinel and Vanguard versions. It's just a lot. We only have Sentinels in this list. By the way, all these lists, all these pictures will be available for you to download if you wish to. A link is in the description down below, so check that out if you want to download these charts and have them, I don't know, as a cheat sheet or something on your table or whatsoever that you can look at and make your own notes or whatever. Then you are free to do so. So let's talk about the tankiest, which is the Barbarossa, at least with hull points. In total overall points, it's someone else, but I'm talking about that in a second. Group shields are okay. You have a noticeable turret output, which is quite nice. So this thing can at least defend itself a little bit. You can also put L-class plasma turrets on that thing, and that's really nice because it can really defend itself, even if it's running into a Xenon group. So that's nice. It's also fast enough to run from that Xenon group. It's like the fastest trader that we got in the game, L-class trader at least. Storage capacity is low. It's pretty low. But one other noticeable thing, so things in red circles are noticeable things, are 160 missiles if you want that, need that, or whatever. I mean, it is shown as a destroyer on the map. There is some reason for that because it has got L-class turrets. But in the end, it is a trader, although I don't know why it has got the destroyer mark on the map, but it is definitely a trader. And it's the fastest, and it has got also the highest hull points. But the most tankiest one is actually the Heron Sentinel, if you count everything together. Or actually, no, let me say the Pelican Sentinel is actually the highest. This is confusing with this gigantic list. If you count everything together, it's like 270,000 points, shield and hull together. That's great. And also, the Pelican Sentinel has got a noticeable storage capacity of 51,000 cubic meters, which is great. But it's not the highest. The highest is the Incarcatura Sentinel with 54,000 cubic meters. But the problem with this thing is it's okay tanky, that's fine, but it's the absolute slowest in the entire selection here, with just a travel speed of 1,297, not even 1,300. Travel speed. This is really slow. And with an L-class freighter, I don't think you want to spend a lot of time waiting on your wares. So we definitely want to have something faster as our best ship here. Talking a little bit about the Sturgeon, because it's the new ship, it's the Boron trader. It has got the lowest shield, which is kind of weird because every single time we talked about Boron ships, I was always praising their shields. And here the Sturgeon, like, really is like the black sheep of the entire Boron fleet, because the shields are low and the hull points are low, and it's just barely above 100,000 points in total, which is less than half than the Pelican Sentinel. although it has got a higher turret output with the highest turret output of 455 megawatts, you don't really want to rely on that. This is not enough to defend itself with that low points. It's not really meant to be defending itself in a battle. It is the most agile one. There's a small marker that it's the most agile one, but that's really just a side note. There are ships that I would just simply would never ever take in this list. And just starting from the front, I would, for example, never take a Helios E, never take a Helios Sentinel. I would never take a Selene Sentinel or Vanguard, a Sonra Sentinel or Vanguard, or a Veles Sentinel or Vanguard. I would never ever take them, only if I get them, like, I don't know, through pirating or something, because mediocre capacity, very low on points, very low on hit points in total, and just not a good option. Everything else is basically above it, except for the Buffalo, which is like it's like the smallest one, just 16k storage capacity. It is really, really low on hit points. It's not even, it's barely above 100k. It's okay fast, but the Barbarossa is faster, and you got more container storage, which is just a no-brainer to take every single time the Barbarossa above the Buffalo. But what if you want something that has got a decent amount of storage capacity and something that can defend itself and is also decently fast? In that regard, I would say there is no clear winner here, in my opinion, but there are some that are just better than the others. And one of them is definitely the Shuyaku Sentinel, which has got a very good hit point range. It has got more than 200, actually almost 240,000 hit points in total. It has 44.4k container storage, which is a high, medium, high. There are just a few ships that are higher than that, like, for example, or actually only the Heron, the Incarcatura, and the Pelican. But still, the Shuyaku is like one of the fastest of those. So I would say the Shuyaku is like the best mix of being kind of fast and also having a good and decent amount of storage. And on top of that, a noticeable mention, the Shuyaku has got 188 crew on board, which is an interesting ship if you are into pirating and you need vessels to store marines or something on them. So you have a pool of marines to gather from there. So you can not only use your Shuyaku as a trader, but you can also use your Shuyaku as a kind of depot for your marines, which is kind of nice. So I would say number one spot is definitely Shuyaku. Number two spot, there are a few ships that I would put into the number two spot. One of them would be the Heron Sentinel. Another one would be the Pelican Sentinel, also quite nice. And I would also put the Barbarossa on place 2 because it's, as I said, very fast, can fight good, and it can also defend itself good. And then place 3 would be still okay, but I would take them but not go every single time for them. It's like the Sturgeon, for example, maybe even the Incarcatura, just because of the highest storage capability. And everything else is basically 4 and below. It doesn't really matter. I would not take any one of the others, not even the Okinawa. The Okinawa is like a thing. It's not really in the middle. It's not really stuck in the middle. It's like stuck underneath the middle. So not really a good choice. Anyway, that's about it for the L-class freighters. And now the thing that everyone waited for, the L-class destroyers. We're going through the details first, just as I did with the other types of ships. But then we're going to have a few different use cases where I want to put an eye on. So because not every ship is like suited for the same tasks, and I just want to point out a few things here and there. Going through all the details, you see that in this case, the Ray is actually this time the tankiest. Just like we had like with the freighters, where the boron option was the worst, or with the least hit points. Now with the destroyers, the boron option is the one with the highest hit points, which is just, you have almost 400k hit points in total, which is just great. And also the Ray is like the best with the average turret output, though I have to say these ships are not spec'd as best as they can be. So take it with a little bit of grain of salt that the Ray has got the highest average turret output. Of course, if you spec the other ships with L-class plasma turrets and other really high-hitting weapons, those outputs go higher, and that's why I say in this just taking the ship, getting max preset, it's the highest. Other than that, Rattlesnake and Sin also have really high average turret outputs, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The Ray is also the fastest with 5,500 meters per second, although that will not help you when the destroyers are just getting out of travel drive 50 kilometers before they engage the target and fly the rest with their normal speed, which I just don't understand, but okay, that's how the game works. That's for the Ray. Oh, and one more mention, the burst weapon output is the lowest. Or even the sustained weapon output, which is actually even more important, is the lowest. Even a behemoth does more damage with its main weapons, and more than twice the amount of damage with its main weapons than the Ray does with its beam. One thing that the Ray does is, of course, slowing down the target with its Ray, but I'm not really counting that in because it doesn't really help that much in a fight where the ships are only flying 100 meters per second, you know, so who cares? Next one, the Sin is really nice, still very nice. Very high hit points, more than 300k. Very nice. The highest average group shields, that means it also has got the most turret groups and therefore also shields on them. It has got the highest sustained weapon output, almost 7,000 megawatts, which is great for a lot of reasons that I will point out in a second, but it is the slowest. It's really slow. A Sin is really slow. Just remember that when you are modding those ships, they can be faster. A Sin can go up to 100 meters per second in speed, and it can also go in travel speed, like at least more than 3,000. You can level it a little bit when you got some modifications that you can put on the ship for engines, for chassis, and so on. But it's also the most agile one when you are in a fight, which is very interesting. And on top of that, another noticeable mention, it has got the highest crew capacity with 188. That's 187 Marines that you can put on. There's always -1 for the captain. So 187 Marines you can put on a Sin, which makes it a fantastic ship for boarding operations. Next one, Rattlesnake. Rattlesnake with decent enough hit points, 280,000 hit points. So it's not the glass cannon that everyone is talking about it. Noticeable mentions, a lot of them on the Rattlesnake, for example, for group shields and for sustained weapon output, which is almost as high as the Sin. I mean, these forward weapons on the Rattlesnake, I mean, I took so many stations out with that thing, just with a single Rattlesnake, and it took some time, but I did it all by myself, and it was great. Also, average turret output on its own is also great. A lot of L-class turrets, good placed M-class turrets, really good. Speed, very good, almost the fastest one, which is great, and also travel speed, almost the fastest one, great. That thing moves fast, and it's really nice to play that thing, especially when it's modified. It's just so agile. Yeah, people that modify their Rattlesnake for the first time and really get like exceptional mods in there and make it like lighter, faster, agile, it's they're astounded by that. Great. Another ship that has got a lot of colors in here in this list is the Odysseus E, just because it has got a few good and bad parts on it. It has noticeable mention for the average group shield, means it has got a lot of turret groups. The average turret output is okay. It's the fourth highest if you count in the ray, of course. And then it's also the fastest. It's the fastest flying. It has got the highest boost speed, though it lacks a little bit in acceleration because it's just so big and heavy. But therefore, it can go up with travel speed up to more than 5,000, which is great. So it will be wherever you want it to be pretty fast. And while I already said it, it is big and chunky, and that's why it's not the most agile one. It's lacking a lot in yaw pitch roll and strafing. But one more thing that I want to point out for these destroyers before we move on to the tasks is the Odysseus variants do have, as the only destroyer in the entire game, M-class docks. So if you need that for whatever specific reason, you need M-class ships on your destroyer, then you only have the single option of Odysseus ships. A few words to the other variants. Phoenix Vanguard, not really good in anything. Behemoth Vanguard, not really good in anything except for acceleration. Okay, it can fly. It can speed up faster than the others, but we're talking about 52 meters per second square, which is not really that much. So it's okay, it's accelerating faster, but it's still not a Ferrari, okay? And then we have the Osaka. The Osaka is like extremely stuck in the middle with everything. There's just middle. Everything's middle. But even that has got some value. And especially if you need ships for defending stations or defending anything, Osaka is a great option because it has got a good turret placement. It doesn't cost that much. It's basically average in everything that it does. So even if you lose one while defending something, it doesn't hurt that much than losing, for example, a rattlesnake. And you can deploy a lot of them pretty fast around the galaxy. Now, for offense reasons, when you want to have ships that are flying as your aggressive fleet, you're not flying it yourself. Very important. Defense and offense, I'm talking about that while you're not using or flying it yourself. The rattlesnake is just great. It's fast, it's agile, it has got a gigantic weapon output to the front. It has very well placed L-class turrets around the ship so that it can shoot out the plasma shots if you're attacking stations or if you're attacking other capitals, like into all directions. Even if it's not facing it already, then it can already shoot it with their plasma turrets. That's great. It's a fantastic offensive option, and it's also a contender for the best player ship. What are the best ships for fleets? Well, a fleet is a fleet because it's containing more than one ship. So there are a few ships that I would put in there. I would definitely take rattlesnakes in a fleet, but in this case, I would also take one or two rays just because of their slowing ray beam, or whatever it's called, ray beam. And with that beam, they can slow down the target so that it's not flying away or that it's just stopping, and the shot is also immediate, just like with the Asgard. It's an immediate shot, and therefore great combination into a fleet. So rattlesnakes and ray goes really well. It does also look great. And then I would possibly take, and this could be maybe even a little bit confusing, but cost to effectiveness for a fleet to have it in big numbers, I would still take a Behemoth Vanguard. Yes, the Behemoths are still great for that reason. They have decently placed turrets, so they are facing forward. When they're facing a target, they shoot very well with their turrets. They have decent damage. Sustained weapon output is still pretty high. It's like mediocre. Higher than the Odysseus, for example, higher than the Phoenix, higher than the Ray. So Still a great option, cost not that much. They're being produced pretty fast. The Argon do have a lot of resources, so you can buy, if you need to buy them, you can buy them pretty fast, and that's just great. So my fleet would contain out of, I would say, maybe 3 rattlesnakes, 2 rays, and then a bunch of like 8 behemoths or something to really strike an entire system and get like a lot of damage going. And then before we move on, like think about also not only the behemoths or rattlesnakes or so with their usual plasma turret loadout, but also think about those loadouts with heavy dumbfire missiles or with torpedoes or stuff. They are shredding, especially stations like that will be just crazy. Just put a lot of those missiles onto behemoths. I usually have like those standard energy weapons behemoths, and then I also have like those flag and missile containing behemoths, and they are really shredding. Like if you have them in your second row and they're firing those dumbfire missiles on stations, it's a firework. It's great. And then the best player ship, the one that I haven't talked right now about it, is of course, and still, even after so many patches after it, the Sin Destroyer. The one ship that, oh, spoiler alert, if you haven't played the Terran story yet, you need to skip that the next 10 seconds. The Sin is the only ship that you get for free, and this is just so great. It is slow, as I said, but as I also said, if you modify it, it can be faster, more agile, and on top of that, the turrets make more damage. And on top of that, your shields are even getting higher. And all the good stuff. You can make the Sin really a powerhouse that nobody can compare itself to. So as a player ship, because you wouldn't modify every single ship you have in the fleet, it's really not a thing you would do in X4. That would take you way too much time, and when you lose a ship, that's just devastating. So you wouldn't do that. But as a player ship, fully modified, the Sin, still the best one. The highest crew, making boarding and pirating operations. The highest sustained weapon damage, which is the only weapon that we can use ourselves, the forward-facing weapon. So you have that power when you press the button. This is absolutely and still my go-to ship. If I wouldn't play a Boron run at the moment, I wouldn't fly a Ray or anything else. I would still fly a Sin because it's just, and it looks just like a freaking like a destroyer should look like a gigantic boat. Actually, it should not be called a destroyer. It should be more like actually it should be a frigate, like, because destroyers are actually smaller than frigates. Whatever. This is X4. This is not the Navy, so it is really a powerhouse. I love it. Yeah, we go with that as the best ship, best outclass destroyer. A few words about the ship that I haven't mentioned. Of course, the Tuta is the best compactor that is there in the game, because there is just no other compactor. And then I think I wanted to place the Guppy into this video. The Guppy, sorry. I wanted to place the Guppy into this video. It just doesn't feel right to put a carrier into an L-class video. So that's why we're going to compare the Guppy with all the other XL ships and the carriers of everyone else. And we just have like hey, I'm a smaller one, but I do the same as the big ones do. So we're going to have that in the next video when we're going to talk about the XL ships. Anyway, that was way too much information. I hope that was not too much information overload. And like I said, the entire pictures will be down in the description with the colors and without the colors. If you want to do your own notes, you will find all of them there in a Google Drive folder. So you can download them there for free. And leave a like and subscribe if you like that. And we'll see us in the next video. All right. Goodbye.